Hi everyone. So, in this video, we'll start off with interacting with database in our application. Till now, we have created a basic Spring Boot program where we have a service file. Uh, you know, we did um dependency injection in that service file, as you can see on my screen. And the API endpoint started with the controller file, controller to service, and then from service to repository to get the data. But in the repository, we just hard coded the ID and returned a response, a string response. Okay. But we never went to the database as such. So this is the time when we will little bit move towards that. Okay. The flow remains the same. The API enters through the controller. Service controller calls a service function where you have the business logic written. And service internally may call different repository functions depending on the use case, and ultimately retrieve the data from the database, send it back uh, as a JSON response, or insert the data into the database, whatever it is, insert, update, read, or delete, you know any kind of CRUD operation it may be. Okay, so currently the first step is to try to connect to the database now. And in this video, we'll see how we can retrieve some data from the database after connecting to that. Okay. And since we have just started on the database part, let me quickly touch upon JPA and Hibernate as well, because they are all connected to how you can retrieve data from the database, or data management side of it, how you can persist the data in whatever form. So it's very important for us to understand JPA and Hibernate. ORM also is one of the terms which you would have come across. So we'll quickly touch upon those concepts and retrieve some actual data from a database. Okay. So what I've done is, let me quickly go to ChatGPT, as I have done in my previous videos. We'll try to get some inspiration from ChatGPT and try to understand these concepts quickly. They are not very complicated. Okay, so JPA full form is Java Persistence API. And what it means is a specification for accessing, persisting, and managing data between data objects and relational database. Okay, it defines a set of concepts and interfaces for ORM in Java. Now, uh, uh, previously, what used to happen before ORM, that which is object relational mapping, came into picture, is that uh, you know developers would connect to the database, get the data, and then convert the data into an object to use it in the program, or try to use the data coming from the database directly, whatever means or form, which was little bit, very challenging to first connect, which required some set of steps to be done, and then getting the result set from the database, and then trying to use that result set, with some coding to convert it into object, and then so on and so forth. So instead, there's this concept known as ORM came into picture, where uh, you would have objects which would be directly mapped to the tables in your relational DB. And I'm talking about relational DB specifically here. Everything we are talking about is related to relational DB. So objects directly getting mapped to the table, and each field in that object would map to an appropriate field in the table in your RDBMS. It could be MySQL, uh, your Oracle, and other common RDBMSs you may have. Okay, so that was about ORM. So that is where JPA came into picture. That is why you see this definition that it is a specification for accessing, persisting, and managing data between data objects and relational database. Okay, so how you can map Java objects and relational database. And obviously, there are various annotations, which you can use uh, to map Java classes and fields to database structures, as I mentioned. Okay. Now, what is Hibernate? Hibernate is nothing but it's an ORM framework and a popular implementation of the JPA specification. Okay. So Hibernate is used to do ORM, you can say. ORM is a concept. Hibernate is a framework, is an ORM framework which helps you do ORM, which helps you do object relational mapping, that is mapping object to your actual fields in your database tables. Okay. And so it's a popular implementation of JPA. It provides the actual mechanism for interacting with the database. And obviously, it provides various other capabilities as well, like automatic table creation. So Hibernate can automatically create database tables based on your Java entities. That is one thing. Hibernate offers advanced mapping features like inheritance mapping, composite keys, uh, and many-to-many relationships, etc. And it also offers some extended functionalities such as caching, lazy loading, and some more advanced querying capabilities with HQL, known as Hibernate Query Language. Okay, so these are more advanced stuff, which obviously you can look into when you get to that level. But that was more about uh, Hibernate, because you would hear these terms a lot, so it's important for you to understand what they are. So we are all very related, and hope whatever we discussed makes sense and you would have understood these concepts. Now let us come back. Now what I'll do is I'll quickly get the properties required for us to connect to database in application.properties. So there are some properties which we need to put in our properties file for us to connect to our database. Okay, so let's get those properties. So it will give us those properties. We'll put those properties. Um, okay, there are some properties obviously which we can ignore as well. So we'll put all the required properties, and what we don't require, those are the properties which you can use when you actually come across that scenario. So I would want it in, yes. So okay, so the application.properties file only, and this is what it has come up with. So what I'll do is I'll quickly copy this, put it in our application.properties file, which actually doesn't contain anything right now. It just contains the application name, as you see. Uh, so my port is the same, 3306 only. Database name. Okay, so database name, what I'm doing is I have already created uh, an app known as Courses app. Uh, and I'm having a user table there which contains just one record. Okay, so we'll try to get this record in this program. So our database is courses underscore app. Let me quickly put that. Okay. And Let me put the username with anyway in my local, so doesn't matter. And Spring Hibernate DDL auto. This is something which I think we can ignore for now. Okay, so now let's go back to our application. And what I'm going to do is instead of retrieving a um, hard-coded string, we will try to retrieve data from our database. Okay, so for that, we also need to make some changes in the repository because this repository needs to basically ex basically extend the JPA repository library which we already have. Okay, so let's quickly get that boilerplate code. Okay, let's get this boilerplate code. No need to remember that particular stuff. It's just, so it is giving us the entity as well, which is great. And then the user repository interface. Okay, so instead of the interface, we will have this as a class only because we would also require uh, so generally user repository is taken as an interface, uh, and obviously you can create it as a class also, but it defeats the purpose. Okay, because you have JPA repository which provides all these built-in functions. So JPA repository is implementing all these inbuilt functions, like save, find all, find by ID, etc. So, that's a standard approach. As I asked also whether that user repository could be a class, but as a standard, it is always taken as it is like taken as an interface because Spring Data JP automatically provides the implementation for common data methods like save, find all, find by ID, etc. Okay. And we are not going towards the custom implementation approach right now. Okay, so let's first start off with some basics. So we take the repository as an interface, extend it from JPA repository like they have done here, very similar way. Okay, so let me quickly go to my application like this. Okay, user. Okay. Now, remember, till now, we, since we never uh, interacted with a database, so we have never created an entity. Okay, so this is the time to create an entity, which would be user in this case, because as I mentioned, now we have to also think about ORM. So we need that entity which maps the Java object to your database table. Okay, so let's create an entity. Okay. Let me Let's just quickly create an interface. Creating some issues, I'll just quickly create an interface out of it. Takes just okay, very good. Okay. Obviously, it is giving us some errors because we have not created uh, the user entity yet. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So this would be a class, obviously. This would be a Java class. And we call it the user. Let's quickly get the boilerplate code which they have given to us, which is this one. Okay, let's see the code. Automatically we will take the package. You obviously have to do some minor changes here and there. Okay, and we may not have included some dependencies. So that is something which we'll do now. Okay. So, okay. So guys, I have included the required dependencies. Let me quickly show you. So we need Spring Boot starter data REST. Okay, for the REST APIs, we need the MySQL connector, Java, to connect to MySQL, and Spring Boot starter data JPA for uh, whatever we are doing with respect to JPA. Okay, and this starter web was a dependency which we already had. Okay, so obviously you would need to know the dependencies required uh, based on the functionality you are doing. So that is something which uh, you you should have the knowledge on, or you can try to get some help from internet or ChatGPT as to which dependency to use. And what also you can do is you can, if you're using Maven for build and dependency management, you can go to the Maven repository directly, mbnrepository.com. Try to look for a particular repository. Let's say I'm looking for MySQL connector. Try to search for that. You will get a list of repositories related to that. So let's say, so I think this is the one which we used. And based on the version, you can click on that particular version. It will give you the exact uh, uh, dependency. Uh, the XML which needs to be put, the XML code which needs to be put in your form.xml file. Okay, so it will give you the exact XML markup there. Okay, coming back, so I included all these dependencies, and with that, mostly all our issues have resolved. So if you go to the repository, uh, the the user entity which we were trying to create, let me just quickly first go to my database. So I have ID, name, email, and password. Okay. So let me name instead of username, let's make it name. That is something which I think we still need to change. Let me remove the getters and setters because I just copied from ChatGPT to get the boilerplate code. Okay. And this, it is up to us. We want to take this as integer or long integer. I generally take it as integer. Okay. And this generated value means that it is a value generated from the database. It's an auto incremented value. It is the primary key of this table. Okay. So I'm not going towards basic concepts of RDBMS. So this table obviously should have an auto incrementing ID, uh, which we call as ID in this case, and then the other uh, columns which are required. So other columns are name, email, and password. Okay. And to mention that this is an ID, we also can put an dot @ID annotation. And obviously entity annotation will come to denote this as an entity. Okay. Uh, okay. And to map it to the right table, we can use annotation known as table. Okay. And then here we can put name is equal to uh, uh, users or something. Users, right? So this is nothing but name equal to users, like users, but I think the name is user. Whatever is the actual table name in MySQL, that is what you need to put inside this uh, double quotes. Okay. Now let's go ahead and create the getters and setters. So go to generate getter and setter, click on all the control click to select all the fields, and it would create the right getters and setters. Okay. And one more thing which we need to do, let's go to the repository here. Uh, when we extend it to JPA repository, we have to provide the data type of the primary key, which is integer in this case. So I have given integer. If it was long mentioned here in user, this one as long, then you will need to put long here also. Okay. Okay, so this is done, and we are trying to get a user by ID, and the return type is of type user, which is this user, the user entity, because we want to get all the details for that user, which includes the ID, name, email, password, etc. Okay. And so here there is one thing which we need to change. This has to be user type. Okay. So now the error has resolved, because get user, we are returning a user, and then get user by ID, we are returning a user. So now everything looks fine. Okay, so this package I need to remove. I think now it has removed all the compilation errors. Let's quickly try to see if we are able to uh, you know get the data with ID. Let's try that out quickly. Let me go to the local host 8080 and users. Let's get the first user from the database. Okay, so there is one user inside. Okay, so there is no user with ID 1. Let's see if we are able to get this user with ID 3. So yes, we are able to get the entire user object in the form of JSON, of course, with ID, name, email, password. Okay. So we are just getting the data, what is stored in database exactly, and putting it into a JSON and printing. Okay. So in this way, we have been able to retrieve some data from our database. We have been able to connect to to a RDBMS first of all, and retrieve actual data from a table. Okay. We will take it towards CRUD operations in the future videos. Hope you are learning um, some good concepts here, and also learning the way to use ChatGPT to learn yourself also in future. Okay. So that's about it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.